Continental Tire Coach's Corner brings us Doc Rivers, the Clippers head coach. He joins us here in the Man Cave. Looking good, man. Looking good like, where would you rank among your players as far as shooting?
Among my players now?
Yeah.
Probably in the middle of shooting, middle in the row. Free throw shooting up high because I became a pretty good free throw shooter. But shooting, I was an average shooter.
Yeah. But who's the shooter that you've seen where you just go, that is unbelievable? You know, I know you've seen Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
But is there somebody where you go, that's just not fair?
Well, those two.
Yeah.
Especially since I'm coming off a Golden State game where, it's funny. Klay Thompson, when he gets warm, he's a great shooter all the time. And then he goes like in those video games where you can push a button and go to where you catch on fire.
Yeah.
Like literally. That's Klay, to me. But I would say just those two guys, Curry and Thompson, now, Ray Allen was
but
pretty special.
Can you tell when somebody's getting warm as the opposing coach, where you go, like you just sense that Klay Thompson is...
Yeah, you can sense it. You can see it coming sometimes. A couple of years ago, Paul George, of all guys, he's a great shooter anyway, but he had a game when it left his hand, you just knew. That's, you see those games, and not a lot you can do when they get to those points.
But when you played against somebody, do you remember? Well, you had the Bird Night.
I had the Bird Night.
New
Yeah,
Orleans.
that was a tough night, man. The biggest argument that night is, you only scored 6 on me.
But nobody was guarding Bird, were they?
Well, we were trying.
You were trying to.
But when a guy is literally coming up the court, calling his shots, and Bird talked a lot of trash.
And that's in New Orleans.
That's in New Orleans. In that game, we're on the free throw line, and he literally says, left side over across the 3, and you're listening to him. That's a tough feeling.
But okay, so you guys got Antoine Carr and Cliff Levingston got fined by Fratello, I think,
and Eddie Johnson for celebrating
Bird.
Yeah, it was the best film session. Every time when I see Mike, we still laugh.
God,
it was
good.
It was the greatest film session ever because back then you didn't have you watched the real game and just went with a video, and Mike rewound the celebration 20 times. He just kept not the shot. He just kept rewinding it, showing the guys. You remember they were giving each other high five.
And then somebody falls off the bench.
Yeah,
too.
that was Eddie Johnson.
Yeah.
Eddie Johnson falls off the bench in laughter, and Antoine Carr and Cliff gives each other high five, and our film session was 20 minutes of that. So it was.
It wasn't somebody not playing good defense on Bird. It was you guys celebrating Larry Bird.
And Fratello wouldn't let it go. He just kept rewinding. And it was.
I think Bird went by the bench one time too.
He fell in the bench.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, and he called that one. That was the one where he fell in it. He literally said, "Off the glass into the trainer." And,
No way.
Yeah, and so it was a bad night.
Who was your trainer? O'Toole?
Joe O'Toole. He's the greatest trainer of all time.
Oh, God.
He's the greatest. I kid with my trainers now. I could break my ankle, and Joe would pat you in the back and say, "See what you can do tomorrow." That was his answer, and we played more.
Did you know this drama was going on with Golden State the other night when you're playing?
I had no idea. I wish I had known.
Man.
I really did. We wouldn't have gone in over. The game would have been a little different. We won anyway, but they were testy. Steve, who complains as much as me, which no one knows. Sorry, Steve, but that's true. He was complaining all game. Durant. It was a testy game. That's our team. If you've seen us play, it's probably going to be a testy game because that's how we play.
You have to play.
Yeah, that's who we are, and our guys embrace that. They just are who they are. And I thought the game got testy. It's funny. I thought Durant had 8 or 9 fouls that game. It's amazing how coaches look at it differently. I didn't know this until later the night I'm watching TV, the sports, and it's like, wow, I never knew this happened.
Yeah, God. And then they suspended Durant.
Yeah, I didn't think it was as bad either. As yesterday when you find out he's suspended, I was surprised by that.
Well, there was some stuff going on in the locker room.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah. Do you guys make a run at Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, we talked. My guess is Tibbs talked to everybody. Like
Oh, he did.
there was no team untouched
Yeah.
in this deal, but we did talk, and without saying much more, but yeah, it was a good conversation.
I also was talking to Elton Brand about Markelle Fultz, and now it's in his head. Like now,
No,
I mean,
it's no doubt.
it's really sad.
I hate it because he was such a good shooter in college.
Yeah.
How
do you get to this point?
I don't know. Like I said, I had the small dose of it one year when I broke my wrist, and I came back, and I really just stopped. I wouldn't follow through, and it became mental. And I was a pretty good free throw shooter, and then I turned into a really good one after that. But the only reason is that summer, the hours that I put in shooting free throws, which, for an NBA player, shooting free throws, that's no fun.
Yeah.
You want to work on your game.
It's boring.
But you have to. And I learned that lesson myself. But when it becomes mental, what is it? In baseball, no one's ever come back to the position that they had it in. Rick Ankill went to the outfield. Chuck Knobloch went to the outfield. In basketball, there's no other position. You can't go to shortstop. You have to play. And so.
Do the Clippers have a sports psychologist?
Yeah, we do. We do. Most teams do. They're still underused. It's the trust factor. We end up hiring a bunch of people that the guys can choose. But there is a trust factor there because the team hires. And I still think it's the untouched area of sports. Golfers use it the most. Tennis players are using it, basketball players, some use it, some don't. Some use it when they need it, which means it's too late, So it's I worry about him because that's a tough one.
And you could see where he goes to the line, you just want to get it over with. Like it just feels like he's not worried about making it as much as looking good while missing it.
No, you're convinced, because again, I had like a 3-month period of it. You're convinced that, when you get fouled and it doesn't go in, that's the basketball gods. They want you to shoot 2 more.
Yeah.
Like you're praying it goes in so it's only 1 free throw. I mean, you get to that point. And my guess is he's at that point. Nick Anderson,
yeah,
you remember, was a great free throw shooter.
Yeah.
Led the league at his position in free throw attempts. Misses those in the finals. The following year, he was the lowest in the league in free throw attempts. So, as Dan Quill said, the mind's a terrible thing.
Well, also that you guys don't want to think. Like you just play, you react.
Yeah.
And when the more you think, that's when it makes it worse, it feels like.
Yeah, the mind, it really, thinking hurts the team. Pat Riley used to say that. It really does, You want it to be instinctive, And, my best games, they'll ask you after the game, what did you do? And you're like, I don't know. I played. And that's what you do. You practice so much that you don't think anymore. It's instinctive. And if you're thinking on the floor, it's not a good thing.
He's Doc Rivers, Clippers head coach, joining us tomorrow night. They play the Spurs. I was also wondering about this. When you had that nucleus, you had your big 3. You had your chance.
Yeah.
Why didn't it result in a championship?
Chemistry, honestly.
But what is your role?
And I don't know if we're good enough, to be honest. That's the toughest part for you to answer. As a coach, I liked all 3 were terrific, DJ, Blake, and CP. But the first year was our chance. We beat we're the last team to beat Golden State in the West, which feels like
That's
10
a long
years
time
ago.
Yeah.
It does, and so that was our year. We get up against Oklahoma, if you remember, had them beat in the series. We had a tough ending of one of the games, and then we lose the next game, we're out. And that was the start. But the 3 main guys, there was chemistry issues. And there were times where they got along, and there were times where they didn't. But I've always felt if you can't get through that, whatever it is, it comes back in times when you don't need it, in tough times, when your teams are struggling, when they're going through pressure parts of the playoffs. But the real reason, honestly, I don't think we were good enough. We were very good, but we were just not good enough.
But what's your role when you sense that you don't have good chemistry?
Oh, that's the coach's role. For me, that was a failure. I mean, you wanted to figure it out. I remember the first year, I thought the chemistry was not good compared to where I just came from in Boston with KG, Paul, and Ray. And one of the assistant coaches who was there before looks at me, "Are you kidding me? This is the best it's ever been." And I remember him saying that, and I was like, "Wow, well, then we're in trouble." And
wow.
I never, a lot of it was sometimes it's just not time to win for guys. They're not ready. They're more concerned with everything else. And you have to sacrifice a lot of your game to win a title. Each guy does. And at that point, I don't think anybody was ready for that.
But you had such big personalities in Boston.
Yeah.
KG and Paul, and then you got Rondo.
But they were ready to win. Like that group you think about it, KG, Ray, and Paul, they'd all done the individual stuff.
Yeah.
So it was time. Like they were mentally, all the other stuff didn't matter. And KG may be one of the greatest leaders ever, or he'd kill you. One of the two. But he took the team and changed the culture himself, and that was big for us.
Did you ever hear the story that Tim Duncan was on the elevator at the All-Star game, and KG got on the elevator, and KG started like screaming in his face with nobody around?
I believe that.
And Tim didn't react.
No, Tim wouldn't react.
But KG was like talking trash to him. And Tim didn't say anything.
I've not heard the story, but it's believable. Being around KG.
Did he yell at you?
No, yeah. You know what he yelled at me is if you took him out of practice. Like he had this thing about practice that he should never come out. And so if you took him out, it was all hell that you had to deal with. But then he would mock what his guy was doing on the floor. It was so silly. Like he literally, if his guy jumped, he would jump. If his guy slide, he would slide. He would run on the side of the floor, and I'd blow the whistle. Why would I take you out if you're going to do that? And he yells at me, "Warriors never come out of practice." So.
Tell me if this story's true. You tried to get tossed from a game.
That's a true story, yeah.
All right. Tell me the story.
Well, it was Danny Ainge. We were in Miami, and the Masters, the final Sunday Masters was on. Tiger was making a run. And Danny says at halftime, he's like, "This game doesn't mean anything. We're already set in our playoff position. Get thrown out so we can watch the end of it." So I go out, and I actually thought it was Jake Crawford. It was Danny Crawford. And I'm going at him. Like, it's 5 seconds into the second half. And he does this. He's like, "I want to watch it too." Yeah, you're going nowhere. You can just say anything. And so
So the official doesn't want to throw you out because he wants to watch the Masters.
He wants to watch it too. He's punishing me, which was pretty funny.
Have you ever been thrown out of a game that you wanted to be thrown out of a game?
Yeah, every once in a while. You do it for the team.
But does it work?
No, it doesn't work.
And what do you do after you're thrown out?
It's funny. When you go in the back, there's nothing to do. I got thrown out one game in Boston in the first half, which was early to get thrown out of a game.
Yeah.
Tim Donahue threw me out 5 minutes into a game. So I felt powerful. Like when I read what he did, I was like, maybe he thought I was a pretty good coach and I could hurt him. But you don't do anything. You sit in the back. Well, this game in the second half, Tibbs was actually the assistant coach. He wouldn't sub. And so I'm using my cell phone trying to call the trainer to tell him to sub, and the trainer wouldn't answer the phone. So it was a frustrating.
Do you think he saw that it says Doc on it?
Yeah, he probably put it back in his pocket. Yeah, I can't answer this. So
everybody's got one. Your Michael Jordan story.
Well, my best Michael Jordan story is we played back-to-back games, and I held him to a pretty low number. And he's walking out. That was in Atlanta. You know how you had to walk by the home locker room to get to the bus. And he pokes his head in and just to tell me, great job. Did a great job on me tonight. See you next game.
Oh.
And so, Spud, they started laughing like, whoof. Well, tomorrow's going to be a tough night for you probably, And it was. It was a tough night. I think 52. I held him to 52. Yeah. And I did my best work that night. So.
Do you think that he was capable of getting, like Kobe went for 81. Do you think Mike, anybody else?
Yeah, those two would come to mind. I mean, Mike, the thing I loved about Michael, though, is he was so efficient. I don't think he gets enough credit for most of his career, he was over 50%.
Yeah.
You know,
But he wasn't a big volume guy, was he?
no, he was an efficient player. You know, the North Carolina way taught him well. You know, he's very fundamentally sound. Most of the time made the right play. You know, the game-winning shots by Paxson and Steve Kerr was because Michael Jordan was playing with him. You know, he understood that. And, you know, he was a dominant player, maybe one of the best defensive players to ever play the game, and had a complete killer instinct, you know. But yet he was really sound. I think that's what made him great.
But 81 by Kobe.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy.
But it helps that it's a competitive game, you know, so you stay.
It does. I mean, it wasn't a 81 where he was just throwing up shots to get the number. That game was close. They were down in part of that game, you know.
But doesn't it feel like Klay Thompson the other night, the way he was shooting?
Yeah, he could have.
He's going to get you 75.
Well, what's amazing with Klay is the dribbles. He doesn't take many dribbles.
I know.
And our whole game plan was, you know, I actually said it before the game, the more he dribbles, the worse he gets. You know, when you think about it. Yeah, he doesn't dribble very often. He's actually a good dribbler. He can handle the ball, but he's such a great catch and shoot. And it's so quick that when you make a mistake defensively, you know, from a coaching standpoint, right when you see it, you know it's too late. You know, we had one late. Tobias and Gallo got mixed up, and you could see the ball in the air, and you could see where our guys were, and you knew, oh boy, this is not good.
Do you have a nickname for Shea?
No, just young fella.
I mean, it's a long name.
And that's, you know, his actual name is longer. You know, he has another word in his name. He told us that. We had a little thing where tell us something you don't know, and he says, well, you guys actually. My name is a lot longer than what you see.
Do you have that, Paulie?
Yeah.
It's Shavante.
Yeah, there it is.
Ashian Gilgis Alexander.
Yeah. So we've shortened it to Shea. So.
I'll leave you with this. Seton does a Steve Ballmer impersonation.
You know, Al Michaels told me about this. He actually did. Yeah, he really did.
Okay.
That's like the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Okay, now I don't.
In the middle of the fairway, Al Michaels is doing your impersonation.
No!
Either Al or Kinnear, one of the two.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, now will you get in trouble if you laugh at his impersonation of Steve?
Of course not.
Okay. All right. Ballmer's got a good sense of humor, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Seton saw this when Ballmer was
The Microsoft?
Yeah.
Right? That he would come
on
out
stage.
The dance thing.
and he would get everybody fired up.
Yes.
All right, so the Clippers owner. So Seton, if you'll indulge us with your Steve Ballmer impersonation.
I've seen that dance.
You hope to see it a few more times this season.
Listen, we see that dance. That means good things
good
are happening.
stuff.
Yes.
Hey, it's great to see you, man.
Great
I
seeing
appreciate
you.
you coming in. He's Doc Rivers, head coach of the Clippers.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.